everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video I'm going to run you through how I make homemade paper using basically recycled paper. I have chosen to use egg cartons for mine, but you can use whatever kind of cardboard or paper that you have around to make this homemade paper. I really love doing this activity. It is really nice and soothing, and you can get really creative with different dyes and colors and dried flowers you can add to the paper, as well as different seeds if you want to make plantable paper. So in this video I kind of experiment with a few different things. Some things go okay, some things go completely wrong, but I'm always learning, and yeah, the main thing is I want to have fun when I'm doing this. So I'm going to jump to the clips now, and I'll do a voiceover just to run you through the steps that I kind of followed, but I'm always kind of making this up as I go. So I really hope you enjoyed today's video. Make sure to give it a like if you enjoy these kinds of videos, and yeah, let's get into it. Alright, to make this paper, it is pretty simple. I will have all of the kind of like ingredients that you need listed in the description box. But to start with, you're going to want to grab whatever kind of paper that you have on hand, whether that be paper or egg cartons or cardboard. And yes, if you do have cats, they're going to be very invested in what you're doing if you are making paper inside. It was incredibly windy on this day, so I had no choice but to make this inside. But basically you're going to want to rip up your cardboard or paper into small pieces, or shred it if you have a paper shredder, and pop them in a waterproof container and soak them for either a few hours, or I did this overnight just to make sure all of the egg cartons were really soft, just because they are a little bit more of a coarse material rather than just like your normal paper that you use for writing and printing and that kind of thing. Whatever color paper that you use is kind of going to be the color of your paper in the end. So just keep that in mind for when you're selecting your paper. You're going to want to grab a blender or a NutriBullet or something. I actually just like to use this blender just for kind of craft projects. So yeah, it doesn't really matter what goes in it. I'm not going to make my smoothies in this one. And you're going to want to I grabbed 2 handfuls, just this size here, of my paper. This is the next day now. And popped that into the blender, and then I'm going to fill the blender up with water. The colour that you'll see in a moment isn't fantastic, and in hindsight this is where I probably would have used some different colours, and later in the video I do try and dye the paper, which totally didn't work out. But if you are interested in dyeing your paper, I would definitely do it either at this stage here when you blend up the pulp, or the stage before when you are soaking your paper overnight if you want to use like natural dyes, like I used beetroot, or you can, there's so many different natural dyes that you can grab from the garden to then colour your paper. But the step here is to fill up your blender with water once you put your paper in, and this is going to make the pulp. This is going to be the bulk of what your paper is going to be, and it will be a little bit thicker than the next step. So you're just going to want to save this into a tub or a bowl or something. Looks lovely, doesn't it? But I promise it does turn out into something pretty. You want to make sure that it's fairly fine so that you're not having large chunks, so that you kind of move it through your fingers and just see like a little bit of texture. I do prefer a little bit of texture in my paper rather than it being so fine. And also the type of paper that you use will depend on how strong your paper is in the end. But to make the paper, you're going to want to grab a tub. This is a 60-litre tub, and I filled it up with just a little bit of water, just down to kind of, where my wrists are here. Added a little bit of pulp, and I'm going to add a little bit more now to create the consistency for my paper that I would prefer. If you want to make your paper thicker, or less if you just want really thin paper. It is really trial and error. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, because I definitely made a lot of mistakes in this. I've made paper so many times and always it turns out different, but this is the main thing that you will need, which is a mould and a deckle, or basically it's just some wood with a fly screen on it. And you can use like old picture frames or anything like that. You just want to make sure that they're the same size. The fly screen kind of mould deckle goes on the bottom, and then your mould goes on top. And you're just going to want to submerge this in your pulp and water, mix it all up a little bit so that all of the pulp is mixed around, and kind of like slide it in underneath the surface of the water. And then slowly lift it up and let the water drain from all of this. You'll see now that as the water is draining, this is our paper. This is the very wet version of the paper, and we're going to be drying them. But yeah, this is essentially how you make homemade paper. You can add so many different things into the paper that I will add in future steps in this video. But to take this out, you're going to want to remove the mould, so that top bit of wood. Grab some towels, or I used old tea towels. We have so many in the house that I just save, and towels everywhere it seems. And then you're going to want to dry it. This is really important to use a sponge and soak up as much moisture as you can once you've flipped the fly screen wooden frame over. This is important to get the moisture out, because then this will be easier to be able to peel it off, and then you have your paper on a towel or a tea towel or something like that, and it's just easier to get off the fly screen or the mesh. You just want to leave that for a while to dry, and I'm just going to be making some more here. I'm adding some dried flowers from the garden in, just to have a little bit of colour and texture to the paper. This is probably my favourite thing to add to the paper. Next time I definitely would have done different colours of the paper, just because it's not my favourite. Grey is not my favourite, but that's okay. We will make do. And you can get super creative here, use whatever you have around. This is me trying to dye the paper. Great idea, Robyn, but it just didn't really work out too much. Looks really cool. If you do want to make some dye, just use some like beetroot. You can just use like the peelings of beetroot, boil it up for 20 minutes, and then you have a really beautiful color dye that in theory looks really great, but I really should have done the dye for the paper in the earlier steps rather than just adding the water in this step, just because it didn't actually stick to the paper at all. So just keep that in mind if you are thinking about dyeing your paper, just to do it in the earlier steps to let that paper really absorb the color. Alright, and then the next thing that went wrong for me, although it didn't really go that wrong, it's kind of cute, but the cats walked all over the wet paper, as you can see here. They've just, they really wanted to help out, put their own mark on it, put their signature on it. They didn't do any of the work, but, that's okay. This was after 2 days. I just let them dry for a good amount of time. You can peel them off your fabric that you have. You can use like old pillowcases, tea towels, anything that you have. Keep in mind that if your tea towels and pillowcases aren't ironed, you'll get creases like this, which I also don't mind, but I know a lot of people like beautifully pressed paper, so this is a great step to, rather than drying them just air drying like I did, you can put them in flower presses to make sure that they're flat before you dry them, or you can wait until after to dry them with flower presses as well. This one here I did add some cornflower seeds, so you can add some seeds into your paper to make plantable paper, which is a really cool idea that I would love to experiment a little bit more with. But as you can see, each one comes out completely unique with different textures and different colors, and I just love them. I love writing on these and giving them to friends. They're a great gift idea and super fun and super easy to make, and there's absolutely no waste, because all of the leftover pulp and water that you have, you can just put that straight onto the garden, which is great. So I really hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know if you try this out, what kind of colors or textures that you add to your paper. I would love to know. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are in the world. And until my next one, happy gardening everyone. Bye.